Welcome to the Gravel Lot, the place where bikes are for everyone.
The Gravel Lot podcast is presented by Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, providing a fully customized cycling apparel experience to provide you and your team the attention to detail and personal touch that you deserve.
And also brought to you by Grimpour Brothers Coffee, offering handmade coffee roasted weekly in small batches to give you the finest quality coffee to start your day. Choose their subscription service and earn your free bag of coffee today.
Also by BioWheels Fit Studio and Workshop in Cincinnati, Ohio, offering you a full host of bike fitting services intended to provide the cycling enthusiast with the most efficient, comfortable, and sustainable bike fit they have ever had.
And by the Ritual All Natural Skincare, providing small batch, handmade chamois cream, custom blended for your team or shop right here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Contact us today to learn more.
And by Hand Up Gloves. Great gear, better times. Providing a wide range of apparel for bikes, snow sports, and golf in multiple designs and fits to let your personality shine.
Our goal with the Gravel Lot is to inspire cyclists of all stripes to ride bikes, share their story, and have fun. We love all bikes and anyone who wants to ride them. So no matter where you sit on the spectrum of bikes, we'll always have a place for you in the Gravel Lot.
And now, the hosts of TGL, John Woolry and Doug McClintock.
Hello and welcome back to the Gravel Lot, the official podcast, the official podcast for all cyclists. That is a great way to start the show.
I was raised Episcopalian, so maybe it's the Episcopal podcast.
Yes.
You could just make a strong pivot towards religion right here.
Yeah. So if it's your first time, if it's your first time, man. How about we just do we just want to start again?
That's good. Just keep rolling.
Hello and welcome back to the Gravel Lot, the official podcast for all cyclists. If it is your first time listening, welcome to TGL. Welcome to the Gravel Lot. On this podcast, we love talking to people who love bikes and telling stories, but above all else, TGL is a place where no matter what ride you are on, I am on, Doug is on, you'll always have a home here. As already mentioned, that's
Absolutely.
Doug. I'm John, and we are so happy, so stoked that you found us. So for those existing Pebbles, welcome back. We love having you guys back, as it is every single week. And if you haven't done so yet, hit the like button, hit the notifications, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, because really that is how our show has grown since day one, is
Absolutely.
you guys engaging and making it happen. So leave your comments in the chat below. And if you want to, you can go over and support us on Patreon. We're going to love you guys no matter what, but I think we would love you even more greatly if you did that, because that's the stuff that really helps us keep the lights moving, keep the lights on, and keep things moving forward. I am on fire today.
It's all right. It's an exciting day. There's a lot of excitement in the various rooms that we're in, and that's okay. Also, check out our Etsy store. We got a whole duds over there. Allegedly shirt. John's got a Gravel Lot shirt on, and all that stuff's available over there. We'd love to have you in some of the Gravel Lot gear. And people go, what the hell does allegedly mean? You'll be like, I don't know, allegedly. And you can explain your gear.
It means whatever you want it to mean. That's the beauty of it.
Right, exactly. So Patreon, John mentioned it. We'd love to have you as a patron on our Patreon. Whatever method or amount that you can get involved in, all that stuff helps us produce this and bring this to your ears and eyes, or whichever way you're consuming this, teletype, whatever it is. But one of the things that we are doing on our Patreon is gathering up some reaction videos and some sneak peeks of some new projects. We got some new stuff in the pipeline that we're working on, and you can submit questions that we will answer directly. You can also call our phone number, whether you are a patron or not, and leave us a message, 513-400-5577. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know what's going on with you. Feedback is always welcome in there, and questions, and we will address those on our own personal AMA, which we are working up. So pretty excited for doing that for all of you. So with that out of the way, John, how was your ride this week?
I think rather than talk about the previous week, which again, like moving forward, got to go spend an entire day with my lovely wife, which is always amazing. So if anyone wants to know what we did, leave your comments below. I will be happy to address those in the AMA section. But I am looking forward because this Saturday starts my 10-year plus one anniversary trip with my wife. You guys are going to see us next week, but we've already recorded next week. So it's still going to be at the same time, but there's a little bit of time travel involved because it's next week and we already recorded it last week, but whatever.
I was just called time traveling. Like if you get really blacked out drunk and then you just wake up and you're like, what happened with those 6 hours? That's
Yeah.
time traveling. But
Yeah.
that's not what we did. We actually
Right.
did time travel.
Right. It's like, yeah, the drinks are like a magnet running over the VHS tape. It just like
Right.
erases that
Yes.
part of the VHS tape.
Basically.
But I think in addition to looking forward from my vacation, I'm also looking forward to, there's a lot of things that came kind of into crystallization in the last week for us. Alma Glen Gravel, July 27th. We are going to be leading an all cyclist welcome ride. I don't want to call it a beginner's ride because it's still 30 miles of gravel up in Michigan, in Alma, Michigan. But the whole premise of it is to just go out, ride bikes, have fun, and be around our community, be around you guys, talk to you, engage with you. Plus, hand up, Be Free Ride Bikes, Grimpore Brothers. So many of our partners have stepped up with discount codes, swag to go in, additional swag bag. So there's going to be so many bonuses to go with those folks that join us in Alma. And we are working with a bunch of other rides kind of in the region to be able to do this on a more regular basis with you guys. And our partners are so on board with all of those things as well. Yeah. So whole bunch of stuff, as Doug mentioned, like there's going to be more details coming up on the Patreon, but I am very, very excited about that because between being able to do the Shawnee ride, the Cora ride a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago, doing Black Fork, being back around the cycling family, like I am just so beyond excited to be able to go back and do these things, but also like bring new folks into this world of cycling and gravel and be able to give you guys additional swag from our great partners. So like I'm eyes down the trail.
That's good. And I'm right there with you because I mean, this week has been whatever it has been. My yard looks top notch. And I killed a mole. Thank you to my dog Bunny who helped me find the mole, and then I killed it, but there's another one back, so I'm gonna have to get that one too. Any rate, mole murder in my yard. They're destroying my beautiful yard. At any rate, we're all waiting on the cicadas in Ohio. They're coming. Haven't seen any yet, but very excited for them. Should be interesting. But I'm with you. I'm down the road. I'm looking at this. We're really excited about these events, and we're working to really put what we care about and what we made us love bikes back into the world. And I think that's the key for us this year is talking about how we create those experiences that kept us in bikes and create that community around that and bring new people in or give people an opportunity to experience bikes the way that we think they should be done at all times, whether you're at the pointy end or not, right? Like you got to have fun doing it. And that's what we're trying to do is have fun. So snacks and all sorts of things. We're excited about it, fired up, hopefully coming to a local race near you. If you want to see us at one of your races, let us know where that could be and put us in touch with the promoter and we can talk to them. We are all about figuring this out. And when I say race, I mean ride. Like
we are more than happy to do your 50K and under rides.
And I mean rides.
Right. And lead whoever you want to lead and have fun with smiles on our faces. As much fun as it was to walk my bike so many times recently.
Yes.
It's way more fun when you have a bunch of people around you.
Agreed for sure. So without any further ado, I think it's time to get cracking on this week's episode. So I'm going to bring in this week's guest right now. And this week's guest has such a long CV that I think we could probably spend like the rest of the episode like listing off all the things on it as far as accomplishments and publications and all of these things. That could be just the whole hour plus that we're going to do.
And great hair.
Yeah, fantastic hair.
Yes.
I mean, we know no one on this podcast has better hair than our guest for sure. But to just try to shorten it, he is a cyclist. He is an investigative journalist with a PhD who just happens to teach other people how to be journalists, which is a wonderful thing to be doing. He is a Brit, but lives in the US and speaks like the gazillion languages. But he also, in all of those things, happens to operate a nonprofit that helps Native American folks live healthy and happy lives through the joy of bicycling. And so all of those things combined, just believe us when we say this, because if you don't know, you're going to know tonight. this guy's kind of a big deal. So without any further ado, James Stout, welcome to the Gravel-Lot.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very welcome after all that.
That's how we do it. See, what we do is we bring you in, we build you up, and now you have to deliver.
It's the two most favorite pastimes of us Americans is we love building people up, and now we love tearing people down and tearing it all apart.
We are not doing
I know.
Well, thanks for being here. We are stoked to have you. Friends of the show introduced us to you, and we're really glad that we've got some chance to have you on and learn a little bit about your story, which is interesting and diverse. And I think we want to start with a little bit of groundwork and kind of set the stage for things. And we'll get to bikes, but okay. You have a British accent and you live in America. Where'd you grow up? Like where are your origin stories? And were bikes part of that at an early age?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Cotswolds, which most people probably haven't heard of. It is a part of England that like you'll see on like chocolate boxes and postcards, and on the bus tour, you can do the bus tour from London. Come and see it. But no, I lived in a pretty rural area. Both my parents were in agriculture. We had sheep. It was nice. And I always had bikes. Let me think. I remember the first bike that like I got that was like a cool bike. It was probably when I was 10 or 11. We were lucky to live in the countryside and have loads of space. So we'd always be like making jumps and making trails, and crashing into each other, and all that. So playing bike polo, all that stuff. So like, ever since I was old enough to have my own interests, bikes were one of them. Still are.
So, growing up in England, were you exposed to like bikes as something other than just playing around, in the country with your friends? Were you exposed to like the idea, because ultimately, it becomes part of your story, that you can like go out and perform on your bike and like do a thing? Was that ever like a twinkle in your eye?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I always enjoyed endurance sport. Like I liked running. I'd run a lot when I was a kid. I played a lot of rugby as well. My dad was a very good high level rugby player. I'm not built for that. So we I remember like early when I was very young going on holiday with meeting up some other families on holiday, and like one of them was a triathlete, which is obviously not bike racing, but I remember being like, oh wow, this guy's biking. It was like a Y frame, there's like soft tail.
Yeah. With the beam that comes off that has the saddle sitting on it. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that thing's like a spaceship, look how fast he can go. So I remember that being cool. And then like we would ride our bikes when I was doing rowing to and from the boathouse. And just being like more and more like, actually, this is more fun than the rowing part. And so probably by the time I was 15, 16, I'd been mountain biking for a while and doing like these long, back then, like the marathon mountain bike race was a thing, but like, at least in my era, we had these big long ones that were like a single loop, which is really fun, rather than doing laps and laps and laps, like most of them. So I'd done those, and then just went to my local road cycling club, which it's very different to the United States. It's more of a like old men go bike riding together to the cafe thing in the UK, but it's nice. It's fun. The Sunday rides are fun. No one's pretending to race. And they got me into it, helped me out with race entry fees and all the bureaucracy around bike racing, sorted me out with a coach and a better bike, and off I went.
So for you, it sounds like, this is something that we've noticed a lot of folks come into cycling as a kid is it's almost like channeling all of the energy you have as a kid. And you're talking about you're running, you're rowing, you're cycling, you're in all of these sports. So were you seeking these things out as ventures for you, as like, I want to figure out which one of these I like, or they all seem interesting? Or was it your parents like, we have this kid, he has so much energy, we don't know what to do with it, so we're just gonna like put him in all of these things until one of them kind of works?
I think a mixture, like definitely the team sports, like rugby. That was definitely my folks, and it was just sort of my dad would come with me and coach the junior teams and stuff.
Right.
And that was more just sort of what a lot of young men in my sort of family did. So that was them, and that was definitely one outlet for me. But then certainly the cycling was more of a me thing. Like I just would find, I found it fascinating. I remember getting mountain biking UK like back in the day, and like just when I was at boarding school briefly for a couple of years, and I would sit there reading that. Just loved all the bike parts, like when everything was anodized and stuff. Like, that really appealed to me personally. Was like the combination of doing big adventures. I've always really liked just like being on my own outside exercising, and like I've always really kind of needed to be on my own outside exercising for part of my day. And so that was just me looking for ways to do that. Running is not good for you, I'm convinced.
I am too. I'm with you on this 100%. It's bad for your knees and your mental health, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, not designed for it. So like, I like going on walks and stuff, but the bikes were more of a me thing. I just found them, loved it. And I had lots of friends who were my age. So when I was, 11, 12, 13, 14, I'd just disappear on my bike with my friends at 8 in the morning and come back in time for dinner and just ride around. So that was the thing that we did together. But it wasn't like my parents took me to a bike club and were like, exercise this child.
Yeah, no, that's the Jeremy Powers story, basically.
Yeah.
Like, dear God, something is wrong with him. Please sort him out in some fashion. Yeah, it's a problem with him. We got to figure this out. But I think that's interesting. But it was definitely an outlet, and I think for a lot of people, sport can be that, and it can be part of you growing as a child and understanding yourself and your limits and learning those pieces of it. So we're another piece of the story, which we didn't even mention in your lead up, is you're diabetic. Were you diagnosed at this time as a diabetic? Was this already on the radar, or did that come later? Because I can imagine that if sport is part of your defining characteristic as a youth, like that has to be an interesting management problem if it hasn't been identified yet.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think sport was. It was just a thing that we did. Like, I don't think I was like an athlete person until later. I was in plays, did music, I did academics. Like, I was very lucky in that sense to have a school experience where like you didn't have to be like a sports guy or girl or like, like an academics girl or whatever, a person. So like I was very fortunate. I know lots of kids don't have that. But no, my diagnosis came a bit later. So it was actually when I started riding and training more. And then I was losing a ton of weight. Like I used to look like a kind of respectable size sort of person. And then I sort of looked like a twiglet, and now I'm working on getting somewhere in the middle. I was losing a lot of weight, but I was like, this is great. I am crushing. I'm riding more, very skinny. Look like the people on television who at the time it hadn't occurred to me were taking drugs. And so, but then I just started to be not very good, to put it mildly. Like it just sucked all the time, no energy. And I would bonk on rides, and I blacked out on rides. But like the riding, the type of diabetes I have is not like it's not like an on-off thing. It's called a honeymoon period where you're
Cat.
Stepped on something there. Yeah, I stepped on a cat. Your pancreas goes basically your pancreatic function goes down over time. and I was writing a lot, and so that was stopping me presenting with the typical sort of diabetes cluster of symptoms. And even then, actually, we've changed a lot since then. We've worked a lot. We've worked out that it's much more common than we thought for people to have autoimmune diabetes. This is going to happen now. Come on, Missy. Come on, darling. We've worked out that it's much more common for people to have autoimmune diabetes later in life than we first thought.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get diagnosed for a while. My diagnosis was messy, and they thought I had type 2 diabetes, which I don't. I don't really present like type 2 either, but they were just like, he's too old to have type 1. And they were giving me medications which really didn't work for me, and that was causing me to have very bad, like I remember being given metformin, like an oral medication for type 2 diabetes, for some reason being dosed by some galaxy brain thinker based on my height, not my body mass. But yeah, I'm not fully, that's my recollection. It might be wrong, but like I do remember having such a bad low blood sugar that I ate a can of like the icing that you get, you roll it. Yeah, like, and just being like, I'm dying. So yeah, I had some rough times in the diagnosis process, actually. So that was like, I bet I started to present with high blood sugars at 16, but it wasn't until I was 19 that I really got a decent diagnosis.
So a fair bit on from getting in, like, it didn't show itself as early as you would have necessarily thought in that space. It's interesting.
No, I think well, like, yeah, like I think we think that diabetes, it's the kid in school who's peeing all the time when they're 4 or 2 or whatever. But our understandings now is a bit different, and it's less likely, but it's not impossible that it presents later.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is classically 19 does sound late, and it's also hysterical that they're dosing somebody. And I'm going to use your words, regardless of height, that was a twiglet, like that based on your height, because that stuff is really, really strong and can do it does amazing things for the people that need it, but that's also like a very, very small window. So I guess for me, like, I don't have anybody kind of in my immediate circle that is type 1. So like my understanding of it's pretty small. The majority of my extended family is type 2. So like what is kind of the norm now with, as you've said, with like a higher level of understanding? Like what is kind of the average presentation, or is there an average presentation of type 1 diabetes now?
Yeah, I don't think there is like a particular average. And I think the way that it helps me to understand it is to think of this as like a continuum rather than a binary. So instead of thinking about like type 1, type 2, autoimmune, insulin resistance, to think of those things as kind of a scale, like a sort of how insulin resistant are you, or how much insulin are you producing? I'm being attacked. You can't actually see this, but
no, it's fine. We know what's going on. If you get taken down and fall over, we'll just end the podcast and be like RIP across the screen, and that'll be good.
He lost. I'm just going to do an exchange with my partner here.
All right, send a cat out.
1 second. I'm being attacked. That's
this cat has been banished. This cat has been banished from the area.
So okay, we're safe. Yeah, so like that's how I help to think of. It helps me think about it like that, right? And then the symptoms are actually the same, and sometimes the treatments are the same too. So like that would be that you are drinking a lot, that you're urinating a lot, that you're losing weight in a way that you wouldn't expect, doesn't line up with what you're doing, lethargy, and then often bad breath is part of it too. And these are like, that cluster of symptoms makes it pretty easy to present to a doctor and then diagnose the person with a simple blood test or even a finger stick. Actually, like I've seen lots of people diagnosed with diabetes in my life, just working in nonprofit, and it's very easy to diagnose because often when people do present, they're normally, like if you don't have diabetes, your blood sugar would be between 80 and 120. Actually, it does get a little higher and lower, especially with women. Women tend to get lower, or and like tends to get higher with athletes after exercising. So, but if you roll up at 250, 300, that's what that is. Yeah, you either dip your finger in some sugar or you have diabetes, are the two kind of. And then you can definitely dip your finger in sugar and freak yourself out. I've seen that happen. But yeah, it's quite easy to diagnose. It's quite easy to treat. Look, it's very easy to live a healthy, happy life if you have access to insulin education, and if you don't, then unfortunately, it's not easy, and it's not your fault.
And I think that's important for people to understand, right? If you don't know you have a challenge with something, right, whatever it is, whatever medically you have some challenge with something, and no one has ever given you the like roadmap or the lexicon of how to potentially deal with that, it's not manageable, and symptoms cascade and things continue to go on. So at 19, you kind of start to learn that this is part of now James's life. This is part of what you're going to have to, I don't want to say a cross to bear, but a thing you have to deal with for the rest of your life, right? You can't just magically wave a wand and see this go away. You know, are you in university at this point? Are you like what does this do, this sort of diagnosis, what does this change for James and the mental calculus of where you thought you were heading?
Yeah, those are good questions. I was away at uni, yeah. It wasn't that far from home. It's like I used to ride home. I think it was 70 miles. But like yeah, it was upsetting at the time because I remember the endo being like, oh, well, you're not going to be a cyclist, mate. So just maybe give up on that, play chess, focus on your academic career.
Wow.
Wow, that's harsh.
Yeah, it was. And even at the time, that was sort of a retrograde, to put it nicely, perspective. And he actually had like another doctor working under him. He was like, he's full of shit, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that. But then, like, I was just sort of not. I was very fortunate, right? Because I was like at a university, I had access to all these papers. I was young, I was fit, and I was like, no, like I've been doing this for long enough. I'm diagnosed and treated. I'm going to work it out. And I did. When I was very, very lucky to have a community to help me, to have friends who didn't have diabetes who I rode with to help me, to have friends who were doing medicine who I could go to and just be like, look, this and this and this, find me the journal articles, whatever, and I'll read them. And then I don't understand this word. What does this mean? And like through like reading and failing repeatedly and just finding out the fact that doctor was sort of just trying to make their lives easy, I think, by sort of, it's a lot more complicated than if I did, you know, get into chess. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to work it out, right? Not everyone is, like, not everyone has access to like the entire cohort of medicine students at Oxford University to help them.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt the cause.
Yeah, and not everyone has the education necessarily to even be able to open up a journal article and understand what those words could even mean. And that's not, you know, they're failing, that's a system failing.
Yeah, very much so. Like, I think one of the big things that really struck me actually about just how fortunate I was, right, was like, there's me, 19, diving into these endocrinology journals, being like, I'm worked out, and you know, it turns out that it's possible. It's when I've met people who are the same age and they've just been diagnosed, or they've you know, they're sort of transitioning from living with their parents, living alone, or I've met parents who are only slightly older than that, who have children who have been diagnosed very young, and I've sat with them and gone like, all right, look, it's not that bad. I promise it's not that bad. You're gonna have to be aware of the carbohydrates they eat, and then them going, okay, what's that? Meaning, well, you know, and that's not their fault, right? Like, you don't need to function in society as a human. You don't need to know what carbohydrates are, and like, it's not everyone goes to university or to school for as long as I went to school, and like you have no obligation to know. Doesn't have moral value to know what carbohydrates are.
Right.
But like, yeah, I mean, that was a given for me. I didn't have to learn that. I didn't start there. And so like for a long time, I volunteered with diabetes education because that lack of education could be as fatal as the lack of insulin. No, if you don't have insulin, you're still in trouble. But you can have insulin, not education, and a lot of resource poor settings really don't have time to deliver that education. So that's no one's fault, but it definitely does have negative impacts on people's lives.
So let's talk a little bit about that in terms of is this digging into endocrinology books? Is that you educating yourself on trying to just understand as much of the landscape as possible, or is this part of trying metformin? It's too high of a dose. At what point does you just trying to figure out what everyone around you is saying turn into, okay, this is how I am managing this moving forward? Like, walk us through your engagement with trying to teach yourself, but also at what point does all of this kind of begin to, like, at what point does the boat stop rocking?
Yeah, still rocks. Like I was definitely eating like big pieces of bread in my underwear at 3 a.m. like 2 days ago.
Well, I mean, hey, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, big pieces of bread are tasty in your underwear at 2 a.m, but you have a different medicinal need than I do at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I was just stoned.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean, that's possible, but
allegedly.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do the radio guy voice and be like, he was not stoned. But what really I think was the thing that I wanted to work out was like, when do I take the insulin? How much insulin do I take? And how does that impact what I do that day? And specifically for me, that was riding my bike, right? Like, do I take the insulin on my bike ride? Do I take it before? Do I take it just before? How does that change depending on how far I'm riding? Do I take less insulin after a long ride? Do I take more if I don't ride that day? How does intensity affect that? How does altitude? What if I get the break in a race and miss the feed and then go pretty deep and sort of, the end of the race, I'm wobbling and I don't know where I am. Oh, well, I've drained all my resources now. Do I take the same insulin? Probably not, right? But that's not in the textbook. There's not like, what happens if you make it into the break and then drop your water bottle?
Right.
Not in the journal of endocrinology.
This is an interesting idea, and actually, maybe you can write some textbooks about this. This is a good idea, James. I think you've got a corner on the market here.
Yeah, all 7 people.
I know one of them in Cincinnati. He will never make the break, but I know him.
Yeah, it was rare for me. But yeah, there's a growing community of people exercising with diabetes, right? And like, it definitely now makes my management easier, right? Like, so I'm dealing with this thing at the minute where, like, with stupid little bone in my foot, it is hurting. I broke it a number of years ago, decided to be an idiot and ignore it, and here we are, right? 5-10 years later, it still hurts. And if I don't exercise, I don't know how to have diabetes, right? Like, for as long as diabetes has been part of my life, so has exercising 20 hours a week. And so I am incapable of functioning without it, which is quite frustrating sometimes in terms of time management and trying to be a decent partner, etc. But yeah, it's now very much a tool as much as insulin is. And that's like, that's a thing I can share with people, and it can change people's lives in a positive way. Like, you can also go too far and become entirely reliant on it, and there's sort of a balance to be struck there, I guess.
In listening to all of that, there's so much of this, and I know that Doug's going to start nodding his head when I say this, but there's so much of your story that I can relate to in terms of, okay, this is what's going on. Now I need to go educate myself top to bottom on all of the if-then statements that could come from this thing that is being addressed right now. Like, in almost over preparing yourself for all of the variations of things that could come. The one that obviously comes to mind that our listeners kind of were living through with me was my wife's tibia fibula spiral fracture, of sitting there and listening and peppering the surgeon with question after question after question of all of the myriad things that could come, pre-surgery, post-surgery, recovery, PT, all of those things, and trying to prepare myself to be the most supportive thing possible in her life. And this one, it's even more when it's yourself of, okay, this is for me. These are the things that I need, in terms of like trying to find, like, so the boat doesn't tip over and things don't go like, because even under the best of circumstances, like the waters can be rocky, but I think your seas are a little bit higher than the average person because there's an actual thing that's going on in your body that you need some sort of external support for. So I think this leads to an interesting conversation around your process of getting deeper and deeper into cycling. As you said, you're doing training at university, you're doing more with the sport, you're getting more invested in it, you're becoming more serious with it, and trying to figure out how to manage what's going on with your diabetes during this sport. But also, like you just mentioned, you're still doing 20 hours a week, and what is like the right amount of balance. And I think this is an interesting part of your life because you got involved in bike racing and then you walked away from bike racing. So I think that, like, so much of what you just said encompasses a lot of kind of your time in getting really, really serious in bike racing. So, like, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit in terms of at school, training, racing. Like, what does that arc look like? Because it last time you mentioned it, you were doing the coffee rides with the older guys, and at some point we transition into winning the 6-foot trophy that you showed us before we were recording.
No, we only saw the top foot of it. We didn't see
right.
Bro, he couldn't get it on the screen. It was the thing.
I keep it for my Zoom calls. Just so everyone knows that I used to be a bike racer. It's very important.
Right, exactly. We all have to have our trophies in some fashion.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I was at uni. And like I think a lot of people, you go to university, I've got my own time, right? You should have spent it reading and studying, and I spent it riding bikes and playing and fixing bikes, doing bike stuff. So I cycled a lot when I was at uni, did the races, and then just like it's a bit different in the UK in that we have those national level races. Obviously, it's a smaller country, but perhaps with a more active scene at that time, right? This is like 2007, 2008. Maybe not, maybe things were going off here with Lance Armstrong, but we'd also go across to Europe and race a lot, right? It's not that far. So we'd get on the channel, go to Belgium for the weekend, race in Belgium, race the Comises. Yeah, something. And it's fun. Like, I think I have some wonderful memory. Like, yeah, I wouldn't do my my late teenage years any differently if I got the chance. Like sleeping in the back of a car with 3 other men and like a wheel of cheese that you'd won the day before was like not a smell that I want to go back to.
No, but like I fully back that because you can't tell that story and not have everyone go, and that sounds like it was epic.
But also like in just saying those couple sentences, and then if you ask the question, where did this happen? I think everybody listening to this would be like, oh, that's Europe. That's like totally Europe.
Yeah,
giant block of cheese, like 3 skinny dudes in a car racing bikes. Like,
this isn't Arizona.
No.
Yeah, there's no option there. It was super fun. We go up to Belgium and race. We do the British universities races, do the British races, just doing all the bike racing I could do, gradually getting better, working out the diabetes, working out the bike racing, working out what kind of bike racing I liked and didn't like. And that just sort of became more and more like, it's fun to succeed and it's fun to race bikes. So I was like probably I think I was pretty serious to myself. Now looking back, like, it shouldn't be that serious. You're just exercising in tight clothes. But we we traveled a lot. We raced a lot. I was lucky enough to have like older guys who looked after me a lot. It was mostly sort of all men, and we would just travel and do like these, like I say, these races over in Europe. And then like I came over here 2008, the end of 2008.
Oh, brilliant time to come to the United States. Not a global financial crisis in sight.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. Like I finished my undergraduate. So I did modern history and politics, a highly employable degree. Highly recommend. And I'd just written my at Oxford, you do a weird thing. We do like an undergraduate thesis. So I've just written my little thesis on anarchism and the builders union, which again transfers directly into employment.
Actually, quite the opposite, I believe. Like directly, right? Anarchism is not about employment.
Yeah, and like I remember watching all my friends go off to like the city and stuff, which is like our equivalent of Wall Street. I guess friends, people I knew, and people in my, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So came over here and started my PhD instead at the University of California, San Diego, which is a good place to ride bikes, not coincidentally. I had a couple of different places. There's couple in Pennsylvania and Chicago. And I went onto the old weather.com and poked around. And I was like, San Diego one's broken. It's just like between 15 and 20 all year.
It's stuck. It's just stuck.
Just refresh it, shake it. It turned out it wasn't broken. That's really what it's like.
San Diego, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in?
Yeah. In every other aspect apart from the weather, we could do with that here.
For sure.
It's a mess held together by sunshine and beaches. But yes, so I thought I'll go there. It looks like basically the city is air conditioned. And so I went there and just continued doing the bike racing thing. I was very fortunate to get into all kinds of fun sort of bike racing adventures. I rode for a team for a year, ended up not having the best experience there for a couple of years, but it was a team called Team Type 1, obviously focused on the diabetes thing, at least nominally. And we did race across America, which was a cool bike race that I really enjoyed. And we were fortunate enough to win the eight-person division. It's actually a bike race which isn't like strictly gendered, and turns out it's just fine. Like not a big deal.
Just go do the thing.
Yeah, ride the bikes, see who is fastest. And even if you don't win, it's still fun. So we did the 8-person overall, which was super fun. We actually just had a reunion recently, which was cool to see everyone again. But I was still young. I was like 21, 22. And we're going, people like Ram is like very dorky. And all my bike racer friends were like, I remember at my wedding, everyone was like, yeah, James, you won Ram. And all my bike racer friends are like laughing because it's this dork thing. But actually, that's just us being pricks, because it is cool. I'm here to tell you. I'm saying that. But
it is. Let's be very clear. Our friend Joe Lawhorn has done it himself, right? He's done Ram and did well, right? But I frankly think that if you can ride across the country, whether it's you by yourself or you and 8 people, that's a pretty impressive thing. And you know what? The cycling world, as we well know, and we talked about in the green room, we will talk about again, I'm sure, is we're bad at othering people and calling them dorks for whatever they're doing. But good God, riding across America, this is a big freaking country. And that's a pretty impressive thing, regardless. So I'm with it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was I was young and I got to see all the parts of America that I would never have seen otherwise.
Right.
It's one of the things when I look back on bike racing that I'm glad I did. So I did some more bike racing in the US, and then kind of got into what we used to call adventure racing, but I don't mean like not like the stuff Rebecca Rush used to do, you know, where you're like kayaking and like abseiling and rock climbing, and that shit's cool. Like they're way tougher. But what we did was just go to fun places and do bike races. So like get a composite team, find a sponsor, find a team that'll let you guest, and then go and race in Trinidad or Tobago or Vietnam or like down in South America, right? Like find a place where it will be interesting to be for a week, and then find a way to get someone to pay for you to go there with a bike. And that is fun. Like that I highly recommend.
So here's a question. You know, like I've read some of your writing around bikes, right? And you are trained academically, right? Like obviously got a PhD. Like you understand how to write from that perspective. But your major wasn't journalism in what we would call undergrad, right? You were a history major, so you knew how to write. But I've read your journalism of the stories of telling of some of these bike adventures. Where do you think you found that voice in that space?
That's interesting. I think if there's like so I started writing, and a lot of the credit has to go to Rob Arnold at Ride, which is not as big as it was. I think it still exists, but it's a cycling magazine in Australia. And I was blogging back when you could have like a .blogspot.com.
Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore.
No, no. Social media has got a lot worse. So I don't know. I always felt like I liked writing. I really liked telling stories. I would often find myself, certainly like when I was sort of towards the end of being bike racing seriously, thinking about the story that this race was telling, or this ride was telling, or this thing I was doing was telling. So like I've always like I think actually that academic writing kind of butted heads with my desire to write narratively and with emotion and feeling. Certainly by the end of my PhD thesis, dissertation, whatever it's called, the dull academic abstracted form of writing was starting to crack me. And so writing for Rob was a pleasure. I would just email Rob and be like, "Hi Rob, I've been on a long ride, and it's occurred to me that we can explain most of moral philosophy through what you would do on a group ride at a traffic light." And he'd be like, "Okay, can you write 3,000 words?" I'd be like, "Immediately, yes." And like the writing and the writing always went hand in hand. I think I've done most of my best writing like in bib shorts after directly after getting home from a ride and having a good
just
idea.
totally shelled and broken down to thought process.
Yeah,
emotion, something raw.
Yeah, you have a lot of time to just bounce ideas around your head, and that is something that I really value. And like, there's just enough clarity. Like, if I don't exercise, the ideas are just fucking all over the place. So like, when I ride my bike, there's enough of my brain is occupied with changing gears and trying hard that things just come up, and then I just do voice memos. That's why I remember Phil Guyman has this, like, or at least probably just does on his phone now, but he used to have these voice recorders that he recorded stuff on. I remember him showing me one of those, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I started doing that, voice recording, just sentences and stuff that come up. So yeah, like, Rob was great. Rob would just let me write this stuff. I liked writing it, and he was good enough to help me get better at writing, which I feel like not enough. Like, I don't know if that opportunity is there anymore. I sound like an old person. 34, I'm not that old, but media is such a bun fight now that I don't know if people take young writers and be like, you could be good, but you need to do this, this, and this.
Right.
No, people are just like, no, this is shit, go away. Which is unfortunate. And like you said, like, I didn't go to journalism school. I'm massively over educated. Not like superiorly educated, just like I've spent too much time in education to go back and go to journalism school as well.
Right.
That's a whole nother degree track. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So let me ask this: is you mentioned when you were a kid being in plays and being able to be an academic, an athlete, theater, art, all of those things. Like when you started writing, was it one of those experiences when we've had so many people come on, and I think anyone that's like found their thing that allows them to express themselves, you crystallize that first time that thing really made sense to you, and you kind of hold on to that as like, this is a turning point in my life of, I discovered that this thing means something to me and I'm really good and natural at it. Like when you first started writing and blogging, was it like, I really like this and I also think that I'm good at it, or was it something more kind of existential for you in terms of like, this feels like I'm doing something bigger than me, and I want to share it with more people?
Yeah, I think. Let me think. I think it was the latter. Well, like it definitely, like I would still be writing if no one was reading, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, is it because there's a lot of people, and you said it like, and I still don't know what that word means. I get the premise of what a bump is, but I don't know exactly like how it's broken down. I know it's like when a new car comes out or when a new piece of electronics comes out, you get like the really shortened version of it. So I get that it's like media right now is like, how can you distill something into a clickbait tagline and then have a puff piece article underneath it that no one's going to read, and then you can just sell a bunch of advertising on that on that space. Like the media landscape right now is rough, and so writing articles like that is really, really difficult. So you almost have to be doing them for yourself personally, and then if anybody else reads it and digests it, it's like, okay, that's rad. That's a bonus.
Yeah, like even when I do that stuff, and sometimes it does feel worky. Like I'm very fortunate in that, like it doesn't feel like I like, like clock in every day and
Right.
work. I enjoy what I do. And certainly, like with the more investigative stuff, that makes me happy, and everyone deserves to have their story told by someone who cares about telling it right. But like even with the crappy little product reviews and blurbs and stuff, like sometimes there'll just be one sentence where I'm like, yeah. It just makes me happy, like, which is also like really hard to be edited, because I definitely like I write relatively, I guess, emotionally. I don't know. I have an emotional attachment to the words I use, which is also why like my Twitter is so shit, because it's just like I'm incapable of like being. Sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll be like, "You just did your journalism on there," and then I'll just be like, "No, like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this." And it's just like poorly punctuated and edited, because I'm just like, yeah, let's put it on the internet. Let's just fucking send it. But yeah, I get very attached to like the way a sentence is structured. If someone changes it, then I just like feel personally attacked, which isn't great. But like also editors make my writing.
Editors are not your friend, right? You're like, oh.
Yeah, there are editors that, like, there are so many editors who have made me a much better writer.
Sure.
Like have been like, I know you think this is cool, but like we need to do this, this, and this, and like I wouldn't be able to like I get to flex on like mean people in like national publications now. I'm very fortunate.
Yes. But I think this is it, right? So you said earlier, that tapping into the emotion and the feeling of writing and being able to express yourself in that way brings you some value in that. How did you understand that, okay, blogging and a thing and expressing those emotions can be something I also do through journalism and get involved in like investigative journalism, like, and cover the specific, very hard topics that you cover at this point? Like you're dealing with some majorly, I don't even want to say hot button, but just very fraught issues. There's a lot of emotion and a lot of things. Is that why you're attracted to covering this sort of stuff?
Yeah, like like throughout this, like there's this narrative of my life, which is like, you know, a person enjoys exercising, continues exercising. But like, I've always felt very strongly about like the truth and justice, and like that's why I was writing about anarchists in the builders union, right? Like,
yeah, that's not a topic that anyone writes their like senior paper on, unless they're like, you know what I believe in.
Yeah, like I was at the same time as like this was way more common also in European bike racing. Like when I was racing with Spanish guys at Spanish teams, like we would definitely like not everyone, not by any means. I'm sure there are people who do it in the US too, but like I would absolutely read Kropotkin in the evenings, and like so would other guy. We talk about it, and like throughout, like from a very young age, like not very young, I guess, but like right when I was starting to ride bikes, I was also starting to like go out and shout at the police, or you know, like go and do a protest or do a solidarity action, or try and help in sort of mutual aid ways. So like the writing, wanting to write about this stuff comes out of caring about it, and like being really angry that I would see people writing, especially the last 12 months, I think, like, so my PhD dissertation looks at like using sport to build international anti-fascist solidarity networks in the Spanish Civil War, before the Spanish Civil War and in the Spanish Civil War, right? And I've written a book, and it doesn't bother me one iota if you buy it or not, because I don't get any money. So if you want it, then I like it.
We will link to it in the bio. We'll link to it in the show.
But if you can't afford it, then let me know. Because it's very expensive. It's one of those academic books, which people think professors set their books, by the way, so that they make money. I do not make a single penny. So like I think they just said it because it's pure ego. It's not even money. But like, so that is something that's always been very important to me. And then just seeing people get stuff wrong, that it's important to get right. Like, you know, like we didn't call a spade in 2016, right? We just wrote about Donald Trump because he was different and interesting and obnoxious. And we didn't be like, no, this is a fascist and he is going to do things that result in death and suffering, because we've seen this shit before. And so I'm just quite an angry person. So I just started like, logging on to Twitter and being angry about it, which is not a great career path, but it worked for me. And then just pitching people, I think, and just, yeah, like it's not the most lucrative career path because I spend so much time on it, but I really enjoy it. Like and it seems important to keep doing it. So I keep doing it.
Well, and I think that's kind of the ball game, right? Is like, at what point does stacking up a bunch of money that you do or don't spend at some point in your life, like at what point does that create meaning selfishly versus, like you said, you have an ability, you have these things that you're very, very passionate about, that you see as being clear rights and wrongs, and like if then statements, again, like back to this whole like being educated on something, like I know what's coming because we've seen it before, and yet we all forget history, and somehow like things happen and people are shocked by them. And it is really easy. Like it's something that like my wife and I talked about in 2015, like if Trump gets elected, media is going to make hundreds of millions of dollars because he's great for media, because he's so polarizing. So people are going to love him and people are going to hate him, but everybody is going to make money off of it. And it's going to dilute all of the landscape all around. And it's going to create so much of a dust storm that you're not actually going to know what's actually kind of going on behind the curtain, as it were, from a politics perspective.
I think it's really like part of it also I should add is that like, there are lots of other folks who could like, I'm not by any means unique or special, right? Like I'm just fortunate to be like white, straight, cis guy with a PhD that I can flex, that gets me in the door, that doesn't
opens that door for sure.
yeah, and like it probably shouldn't always be me writing about this stuff. Like, and so that's part of what I'm trying to do now, is to help more a more diverse group of people get into writing. And but yeah, like to your point about Donald Trump just creating a shitstorm behind which he can do fascism. There's this concept called the Overton window, which I remember talking to James Huang about, like in like 2015, and like the Overton window is like the window of permissible discourse in politics, right? And that shit has just been blown out the wall.
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't exist anymore.
yeah, like now you can say whatever you want, like unless it's that like anti-fascist, right? Which apparently is still something that the state will go after. But like, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it's that we're not going to get back easily. And like some of the stuff we need to say, right? We can't like bourgeois civility around the fact that like our policies result in little children dying. We need to say that stuff, but we shouldn't be saying that that's a good thing,
Right.
which is something that's been happening.
But I think it is important that the voice that you're bringing, well, yes, and it's good that you acknowledge the privilege you have in that space, but you have an emotional attachment to this, plus an academic basis that allows you to look at these things with a lens of history, which is helpful. And I think that's the part that is always hard for people to understand. And so I think those sort of things are interesting to see you utilize those as you go to work on some of the work you've been doing. Like you published a piece on breaking down a number of different hate groups and their ideology and their symbology throughout the United States. And those are the sort of things that if you don't know and you don't have a lexicon to look at them, someone has to explain those things to you so that you can start to understand them, right? I have an upbringing, and specifically choices that I made from listening to specific musics and getting involved in specific communities, that some of those things I can already identify, right? But if you don't have that experience, how do you get there? And I think this is the interesting space that journalism and investigative journalism plays right now for us to kind of start looking at how we can educate ourselves and open ourselves to well-researched information in that space.
Because I would add to that there's never been a time where that has been so important and so vital to the broader context of what's going on. And we can lament that, like, for whatever reason, people are falling prey to disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theories, whatever it is. Like, you can take whatever pot shots you want at, like, what's actually causing that, but that's all well and good, but that doesn't actually move anything forward. And I think it is, like, Doug, to your point, it's good that you acknowledge the privilege in being white, cis, male, et cetera, with a lot of education. But from a journalistic perspective, and especially an investigative journalistic perspective, like, that's irrelevant in the fact that if somebody tries to make it relevant to what you've written and investigated and are trying to explain, then that's a more destructive problem. So it's like you have the desire, you have the capacity, you have the ability, and then the want to do it. Like, at this point, I don't think from a cultural perspective, beggars can be choosers when it comes to outing some of this stuff and saying the hard things that need to be said to get a broader group of people to admit that, like, we're not as awesome and exceptional as we really want to portray to the outside world. A lot of other people outside of here know it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people here don't know it.
We're all just basically made it into the Cat 4 race. There are no Cat 1, 2. All right, everybody, we're all just barely Cat 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an important time for journalism. It's cool that people, like, step up and support it. Like, even now, I've found it hard to write some stories, just with the nature of big publications. And, like, some of those stories are stories that aren't necessarily comfortable to read or comfortable to hear, or they confound maybe assumptions that we've made. And, like, some of them are stories that are just, like, people can't see how they affect them, right? Like I got this from and I'm working on a story now. I shall give you an example, and I won't say where I got it rejected from, just in the interest of continuing to earn a living. There's a guy called Awet. He was on Israeli Cycling Academy actually a couple of years ago. He's Tigray, so he's from the northern part of Ethiopia, the southern part of Eritrea. It's the ethnic group that it encompasses both states. And like a lot of folks won't be aware, understandably, that there is a massive conflict going on in that area right now between Tigray, TPLF. That doesn't really matter, right? A political entity and military entity that represents some of them. They were kind of losing relevance, and then this war started. Now they're relevant again, right? And Ethiopia and Eritrea. And there are horrific war crimes being perpetrated, right? Like the worst shit that people can do to other people. And then he used to be a pro cyclist, right? This is interesting. It's sad on a human level, and it's interesting. Like it's more exciting than what Chris Froome eats. And like I'm struggling to explain why readers would relate to this. And like he's had to flee the area. He's safe. His family is safe. And I'm writing a piece for Red Bulletin about it, and I'm happy that I am. But like to me, that is a more important article than what Chris Froome eats or how Mark Cavendish trains, or like I understand the need to cover product because I understand that product is sort of how the media pays its bills. But we definitely do a lot of sort of these relative like general interest articles that are relatively in a very small space, right? And like it's cool that people are still stepping up to support journalism because it is still hard to sometimes explain to institutions of journalism why those stories, which aren't the stories we've been telling, need to be told now, I guess. And like some magazines have been really good. I should point to Bicycling magazine, right? Like they have done they haven't done like a pivot, but like whoever edits their Facebook comments has my eternal admiration because they go in there every day.
They have done a whole lot of work, and that is a tough space to be in. But I hear you when you say that, right? We need to be telling stories, right? We need to be telling the stories in cycling that actually matter, because ultimately this isn't about cycling talking to cyclists. The cycling needs to talk to the world about why cycling matters and why cycling is important as a pastime, not as a importance of Chris Froome's diet and what his poops look like. No one cares about that. No one actually, I mean, Chris Froome probably cares, but no one else should really care. And with that, telling those stories I feel like we're leaning into this space. I feel like we're starting to get to the space where we're having this from more media places. Like you said, bicycling is making some of that change, but it has to be truthful. It has to be honest. It can't be covered with this layer of mystique, with this layer of for lack of a better term, varnish that tells you, oh, it's all so pretty in the peloton, right? Like we have to tell the real stories up behind being people who use bicycles. And I think this is where I want to pivot and talk about some of the work that you're actually doing that's putting you in contact with people who are actually using bicycles in a different space. Because it's all well and good, you can write all these stories, you can talk about all these things, and you're telling good narratives, but you're doing this work on the daily with a project that you've been with for some time now. And I want to talk about it because I think it's important and I want to shine light on it, which is your work with Indigenous Road Warriors. Like you're involved in a nonprofit that is doing amazing things for people who don't necessarily have access to so many different things.
All of it. Yeah.
All of the things. And it's work that is important because we, as the white colonizers, and I mean, you're English, but I'm going to put you in this boat because your people put our people here. And I'm half Portuguese, so we put everybody everywhere. That's also our fault. But like, This is important. So what is Indigenous Road Warriors? What do you do, and what is the goal of this organization? Where have you been pushing this? Because I think telling the stories that you tell through journalism is important, but also you're doing work on the ground. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, totally. And it is my favorite thing to talk about. So like what we're doing is we're helping people ride bikes, right? Like it's not complicated, but what we're doing in terms of like if I'm writing a grant proposal is we are making a peer mentored exercise.
You are right now, right here on this show.
Yeah. Money, give it to me. Peer mentored, exercise based, goal focused lifestyle intervention. I have a text expander for this shit because I forget. But what that means is that I'm helping my friends ride bikes with their friends. I'm helping them set a goal and train to achieve that goal because, like you guys know, you train much harder when you have a race or an event coming up than you do when you got nothing happening. We are doing this as what a quote unquote lifestyle intervention. It doesn't mean like every ride we like surround someone and say we need to talk about your behavior. It just means like
right. Hey James, we're all gathered here tonight.
Yeah.
Tell you about how you behave.
I have that coming in my life, I feel like. But the cycling intervention I need is not one that starts me cycling probably. What we're doing is helping people change their lives through riding bikes with their friends. And that might be because they have type 2 diabetes or they're at risk from diabetes. It might just be because they're experiencing living with depression. It might be because they or someone they love has a substance use issue. It might be because having the bike lets them go somewhere they couldn't go and do a job they couldn't do, right? It might just be because they're not getting as much time with their grandkids as they want. And so they ride together, right? Like I don't really care. It's as much as I care about everyone who I work with deeply and love them very much. But like, it doesn't bother me what brings people to the program, right? We started out as a diabetes treatment and prevention program. Other folks turned up. I'm not going to say, no, you can't ride bikes with me.
Right.
Like, we do that far too often as cyclists. And it's our biggest detriment. It's why everyone hates us. So like, it's a bunch of people focused around the Basque Yaqui and Tohono O'odham communities in what is now southern Arizona, northern Sonora, right? So that sort of borderland area, right? I think most people are aware of this, but it never hurts to say it again that like we're all on native land and these folks didn't cross the border, but the border crossed them, right? And is continuing to do so with this ridiculous wall shit. But these guys who in many cases are indigenous to this area around Tucson, Ajo Nogales, the O'odham Nation is huge. It's as big as Connecticut, right?
I grew up in Connecticut. That's a big land.
Yeah, it's big. It's big for a place that I think most Americans don't really think of or even maybe know of. So like, yeah, we organize these rides. And I should have started out by saying that like Iris and Victoria are the people who carry the burden, right? They are the ones who are on the ground organizing rides, fixing flat tires way more than I am, especially over the last year when I haven't been at all. Because as many people will know, the impact of coronavirus on indigenous communities has been pretty bad. Yeah. So another illustration of the disparities in access to healthcare, which continue to kill people in America. And yeah, it's a tremendous waste. It's very sad. But what we do is organize these rides on Tuesdays and Saturdays, right? Tuesdays for the kids, do Res Road Tuesdays after school. And it's rad. It's the coolest bike ride I ever do. Like, it's way cooler than on the lame Saturday rides. And we just roll up and down, like, I think it's like a 3.5-4 mile ride. And we all ride in a group and everyone points out everything. And, you know, if somebody needs a push, we push them. And if one of the kids wants to go fast, I try and keep up with them. And we just to have a fun bike ride, right? Then on Saturdays, people do an endurance ride of different distances. And what they're training for is, it's called the El Tour de Tucson, which is great. I love how it has like both both articles in English
The-
and Spanish. Yeah.
We'll give you the Spanish article and we'll give you the English. Both. By the way, why not?
It's the most Tucson thing. And so everyone does the El Tour de Tucson, which is, if you haven't done that event, I highly recommend doing it once. It's the World Championships of Arizona. It's probably the most dangerous thing you'll ever do on a bike.
Really?
So you start off and you do like 5 miles of like city streets where you're just like, yeah, we're all going to break and we're all going to sprint. We're all going to break and we're all going to sprint.
Horrible.
And then you cross this river, and like, if you are not in the top 20 or 30, someone will fall off. Or someone falls off. It's like D-Day, right? Like, you just want to get off the beach as quickly as you can before everyone dies. And like, everyone dies. It's just crazy. You're like the wildebeest going into the savannah. You're just going in and you're going in, and then thousands of people are coming in, but no one's coming out because there's just a wall of bodies because someone's crashed. And it just keeps happening. And this is an annual thing. It's just, I love it. Yeah, and then there's like mariachi, and there's someone with like a donut on a fishing pole, and this is all going down at like 6 a.m. And everything in Tucson stops for it. It's a 100-mile loop, like one big loop. And people will hand you beers. There's another river crossing later on. It goes off obscenely fast. Like, the average will be like 27, 28 miles an hour. Because it's pan flat, and like people bring,
and it's Tucson, so it's not like there are any fast racers in Tucson, right? And they're all like we got to be in the front.
It gets like Travis and Eric are flexing, and the guys from down in Mexico come. People ride tandems. It's wild. It's something special. But then the guys who want to do it, for a lot of these guys, like riding 100 miles it's an unfathomable thing,
right?
That it's like an insurmountable hurdle that they conquer, right? So like, for us, it's an amazing day. Like, I'll go do it, and I'll do the whole ride fast crash thing, and then get to the end, and then see my friends finish, and that's an amazing thing. Like, and it's become a fixture of El Tour, which is really cool. Like, people will come and do El Tour and then hang out, and we'll see everyone finish, right? And like, it's definitely like a 14-hour day by the time you've been there at 6 a.m. and you're still there when the sun goes down. But like, the coolest people finishing it are people finishing at the end. Like, I'll do a 100-mile bike ride every year for the rest of my life, but like, maybe.
Right.
So people who are doing it for the first time, it's amazing. And so like, that's the goal element, right? You don't really get a chance with diabetes or other sort of chronic conditions to celebrate your achievements. Like, being not unhealthy isn't something we ever really kind of mark, right? Like, I don't have a day when I'm like, yeah, my hands are still attached, I'm not on dialysis. But like, when you ride 100 miles, you're like, I'm a different person, and it is because I have put the time in and I've put the effort in, and I have consistently done this thing because I want to do this thing, and here I am, like, a healthier, happier person because of it. And if you can do that with your aunts and uncles and grandchildren and stuff, like, it's very cool.
There's so much about that I love, just from, it is the antithesis of how a lot of people come into and digest and consume cycling, because it ends up being, well, I'm not real fit right now, I can't go ride with you, or I don't want to go ride with my friends because I don't want to hold them up. Whereas this is the complete opposite of that, of being healthy, working towards doing a thing, checking the box, even if you never do another 100-mile ride, working towards it and proving to yourself that you can go do that and put the pieces in place to go make it happen and then deliver on it, it's unlocking so many things between folks' ears to make them understand what they are actually capable of. Which it kind of leads me to this question about Indigenous Road Warriors is, you make it sound like it's just organizing rides and then going on rides. But I know that you guys are doing so much more than showing up on Tuesdays and showing up on Saturdays to be the support network to be able to help people find success and head towards their goal, but that goal is just a single day, whereas you guys are looking at such a bigger picture for that person.
Yeah, and a lot of the background stuff is not as fun. But like, yeah, we're always working like we just got a grant from Outright. I'm really bad at this, but Outright have given us some money. They're great, actually. Yeah. Like, you can hate on big bike companies. I do all the time. But like,
but Outright as a program is excellent.
Yeah, it's a targeted intervention and a place where bikes can really change people's lives, and it's a fantastic way to spend money. And they are great, and I can't say nice enough things about them. And it's not just vanity nonprofit; like, they're looking at making a difference, and they are making a difference. So they gave us a grant, right? So what we're trying to do is make sure that everyone has access to bikes, which can be hard if you're a very long way from a bike shop, right? So we've still got that money because COVID. So we are trying to equip a trailer right now, right, with tools, with bike parts, with tubes, pumps, that kind of thing, so we can get out to people and fix bikes. That's a big part of it. Teaching the kids the skills is a big part of it, right? Like, how do you point out a pothole? How do you signal that you're turning right and left?
Right.
And then sort of, we did mess around with training programs. We still do some training programs. We've done some we work with these other healthcare providers, right, who are able to provide things like talk about diet, right, talk about like medications. Right? I'm not that kind of doctor. I can't tell you how much insulin or metformin to take.
You can tell them about the Spanish. You can tell them about the Spanish Revolution, but
yes,
prescribe them how much insulin. But I think this is interesting, because what you are doing is you're unlocking the ability for other people to learn things and approach something and feel like they have the ability to walk into a space and learn new things about themselves. And you're giving them a place that it's okay to ask questions and a place it's okay to challenge themselves. And I think that is just, it's regardless of whether you're giving them a plan that has been produced by the best coach in cycling, that doesn't matter. What you're doing is giving them a reason to do anything, and then being a support system. Where do you feel that, like, your favorite piece of being that support system has been? Like, what was like favorite moments you've had over being the support system for these folks?
I think it's like, seeing people overcome adversity is always really cool, right? Like, for me, I think it's like specifically like seeing the older ladies that like, I think generations ago, like, women weren't, I don't know, we weren't socializing younger women to ride bikes or to sort of have athletic goals, right? Or like, so
y'all hold. I mean, yeah. James, you are holding it together, but there's a cat straight walking all across the screen, and it's awesome. Hi, cat. Where's the cat? Right. Tell us the cat's name.
Her name is Moose. Cat. Hi, Moose. Come on, baby.
Moose.
So I have a standing desk. This is not okay. There you go. She's found her place. She like lives. She has a little bit of the desk she normally sits on. Yeah.
Good job, Moose. We love you, Moose. You're welcome on the gravel lot anytime, Moose.
Yeah, it's my baby. So yeah, like, I think it's seeing older folks learn to ride a bike. Like, it's a super vulnerable place, right? As an adult, not knowing how to do a thing that children do. So like, to be able to come and be like, hey, I want to ride a bike, and I don't know how. And can you stand behind me in a car park while I fall over? And it's not very dignified, right? Oh, we'll go to a grassy place, softer. But that's not a big sort of dignity experience. But then there's a moment where everyone, it takes some people 5 minutes, it takes some people an hour, right? And you're pedaling, you're away, you're doing it. Like, being able to share that with someone, like, that is the best moment in cycling, right? Like, I've done all kinds of things in all kinds of places, but like that, like, oh shit, I can balance by myself and I'm off. and where I can go anywhere now. Like sharing that with someone is incredible. It's so like, it's cliche to say that, but like it's such a liberating thing. So that is definitely my favorite thing.
Well, and I gotta believe at this point in your life, after spending so much time in myriad forms of sport, but focusing on cycling so far, and as you said, like all of the accomplishments that you've had, all of the places that you've been able to ride your bike and be competitive, like that stuff really brings all of that stuff home. Because like, yes, winning trophies is rad, and having those memories and telling those stories is great, but the fact that you're able to share that, not only share the stories, but then share those emotions with somebody, like, no, this is why it's awesome. The minute that actually, to your point, clicks, and they get that, oh my God, my world just got bigger. Like the 6-foot bike trophy, it's funny, and we were kind of making light of it before recording, but like that is completely untouchable in terms of an emotional reaction of watching that person do that for the first time. And I kind of want to go back to when Doug made the transition into talking about Indigenous Road Warriors. He was talking about how your journalism is received, and kind of some of the purpose behind it of, yes, it's maybe being turned down because it's not the flavor of the month, or it's written too abruptly or anything like that. But I feel like all of the things that are in your life are there moving towards trying to help people be more compassionate, more empathetic, more understanding of people outside of their own sphere, give them more perspective and more color on the human experience. And yes, it's a lot more approachable to be able to stand behind somebody on the grass when they're learning how to ride a bike. But you could almost make an argument that writing about what's going on with the athlete that you mentioned is almost just as important for people to have that experience in terms of just understanding some of the things that people are going through, just as much as it is like celebrating the win of riding the bike for the first time, also acknowledging all of the things that led up to that point in her life that have prevented her from asking for help or thinking that she was even allowed to do those things. Like just all of those things are kind of like right now rattling around inside of my head in terms of how all of these things kind of connect, sitting here as like third party watching or listening to you talk about all of these things. It's like they all have this one common thread of trying to share the human experience and help people understand that the world is a lot bigger than they are, whether it's you telling somebody what's happening around them or you helping somebody expand their world. Like hearing all of those things, it's like you, whether you think you are or not, like that is a hell of an impact to leave for, what'd you say, 34 revolutions around the sun now? Like not many. And it's only kind of forward from here for you, right?
Thanks. Yeah, I hope so. I tend not to like think of these big picture things. I'm just trying to go through my life not being a dick.
I mean, that's like everyone's basic tenet, I hope.
That is what we should like wake up, put the feet on the ground and say, don't be a dick today. Like that is aspirational.
Yeah, I felt like if you,
unfortunately.
yeah, right. Yeah, like a lot of us haven't got there. But yeah, that's all it is. Trying to not be a dick, trying to be nice to people, unless they haven't been nice to other people, in which case fuck off. But like, yeah, it's a bit like there are moments, like you were saying, like that in journalism, where like it's so rare today, but like you'll change someone's mind. You know, you'll see someone be like, "Oh, I didn't realize this was this bad," or "I didn't realize this." Like a thing that we did, I've done a few times, which I find challenging but important, is like working with our neighbors in Tijuana, right? Like 2018, I was out there with my partner. We just got married. And that was when they were doing that whole Reichstag fire shit about the caravan. Remember, they had the migrant caravan, which is not an unusual thing. then we decided to make an unusual thing and tear gas people, which was just like shit that I don't want to see again. So like I think I spent a lot of time actually with other bike people too, Robin Carpenter, who races for Orange Team Rally, and Isaac Howe, and Tim sent us his waffles, and my friend Sean Burke is a cycling coach. Like a number of us went down there to just like spend time helping, and just like be neighbors, right? Like, but then I did some writing about it, and I think given that human face, I did it again with Slate this year with the refugee camps on the border. Like I don't know, it's easy to be a dick when things are presented to you as like this massive wave of migrants, freaking like Game of Thronesing our giant beautiful wall. But when it's like this is a person who like, and like there are just this stories which no people should ever have to tell, let alone about themselves. That like some of them don't make it to print, right? Because it's just not. It's just too sad. But like to just look across the border and be like, oh, there's someone who wants a better life for their child, just like I do, and so they've come here. Like, and if you can't imagine why they're sleeping in a tent, it's because you can't imagine why, because your life's been too bloody perfect up to this point that you can't imagine why, right? Like, but yeah, just trying to give those people a face, and then sometimes you'll get one little tweet back or whatever, and they'll just be like, oh, thank you, this changed my mind. Like, that's amazing too. That's a nice feeling. For all the 17 horrible tweets you get.
Yeah, Facebook comments that you got. Yeah, on whatever. But I think that's it, right? Like this is all we're trying to do as if we're being good people in this world, is explain to other people what it's like to not be you. Right? Like, hey, I noticed this person is struggling with this. I don't have to struggle with this, but this is part of what journalism should be doing as an effort, is to say, hey, this story that you may not understand, let me show you how this actually applies to you, and you can maybe see yourself in this person. And I think that is an important aspect of what we try to do as we try to tell stories.
But I think even further than that, by just going through, not just dwindling down, just going through, no big deal. But by the sheer act of writing and doing the investigation, and then showing how that's unfolding within the writing, you're subliminally coaching people how to approach new topics pragmatically and without some sort of like predisposition to what they should feel about it. And that is becoming more and more rare with, blue team versus red team versus whatever team you're on. And I think that like that piece of it can't go understated as well, that like there's a certain amount of teaching and coaching that you do within each one of those articles, whether people are asking for it or not, but you're showing them by how you actually approach a topic and walk somebody through the actual topic, because that's that sort of curiosity, but also that sort of, I'm just here to tell the story, I'm not putting my spin on it, is how we should all be approaching anything that's new for us, because it should be curious, and we should go in with like, okay, well, what am I learning now?
Yeah, that like it's a nice way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, the way I approach something is inherently like a product of who I am, right? And the same way that you do, and the same way that if Ben Shapiro wanted to write about the same shit, he'd think he was taking an objective approach, I'm sure, right?
That is the first time he's been ever mentioned on the show. He's ever mentioned on this show. It's the only air he gets.
Yeah, he doesn't like me. On a
That's good.
Level.
That makes you more endeared to me.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, good. You can go off and do one. But yeah, not a fan. But yeah, we all think we're being objective. I think we just have to understand that the people we're writing about are people too, and they're just like us in many respects. And if they're not, even if there's like zero. Like sometimes, like I'm just gonna shut this door because it's very sad. Sometimes, like I think people need to like struggle to relate or whatever. Like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if, even if there's nothing about the folks you know, like if you're a super cis straight person, and I'm writing something about people who are queer, and like they're in the kink community, right? Nothing about that overlaps with the Venn diagram of your life. You should still care about them, treat them with dignity and respect, and like you shouldn't have to force it into your experience to make you care about their experience.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, as long as we all sort of sit back and think, what would I do if this was me? So I try and do in my stories is like think about how I would feel if I was there.
And I love that, because I think that's the space we all have to operate in. So, dude, we have been all over the map. We've covered like your genesis and all of these different things, and we've been all over the place. And I hope this is not the last conversation we get to have with you, because I feel like we get tons of awesome philosophical places that we can all go play, the three of us, and have you back in the future. But the question we always like to kind of wrap things up on is this. So we've gone through your history, your life, your little bit of your bike racing career, some of the things you're doing, your journalism, your education, all that sort of stuff. What do you want the Pebbles, our listeners, because everyone is a pebble in the gravel lot, to kind of think on when they leave this episode? What would you want to leave them with from that perspective?
There's a lot to think about. We've talked about all kinds of stuff. Yeah, like don't be a dick. No, but really think about, like, especially as cyclists, if I could tell cyclists one thing, it would be like to not, maybe don't identify as a cyclist, maybe just identify as a person who's riding a bike at that time, and then like you'll realize that you're being a dick when you build walls between other people and riding bikes, right? Because their socks are wrong or their sunglasses are wrong side of their helmet strap. And like I've done that shit too. Of course I have, but like I'm trying to be better, and we should all try and be better too.
That's an interesting challenge. Like even just you saying it, I felt like a like chest reaction of like just yeah, I'm just a person riding a bike. And I wrote down something you said earlier because I so want to make this a t-shirt, is you're just exercising in tight clothes, which I feel like it is so much of what you just said. Like you're not a bike racer, you're just exercising in tight clothes. Like it is such a summation of, okay, stop taking it so seriously. Like you're just a human riding a bicycle. Like just changing the perspective on how you challenge the ideal of, well, I'm a cyclist, I define myself as a cyclist, or whatever you define yourself as. You know, you're a human first, like that you're a person first with a story and a background and all these other things. And like, I like that as a challenge because I had a reaction to it, which is good. Like that means something to me, that like I had an initial like lizard, like block it, like no, this is like part of my character, you can't tell me to do that. But then you know, shut up. And I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, if it makes you happy and it makes you feel proud of yourself, and then that's fine and good, especially if you've had to struggle to achieve it, right? Like that's okay. Just don't build up a wall between anyone else and riding bikes. And that's definitely something I work on all the time, you know, like just not being a prick because of someone's stem length or some stupid arbitrary thing.
Right.
I mean, I think that's good. I mean, I know I do it sometimes too, even now. And I'll be like, oh my God, look at this Fred weaving in and out of these. Like, dude, get your hands off your extended strapped on bars. You're waving over 6 lanes. And then I'm like, guess what? You know what, Doug? They're riding a bike. Stop judging them. And that's something that I have to own and I have to work on. And I appreciate that as a challenge for everybody to think about how to give more grace in that space and stop gatekeeping this, because it's so easy for us to do that from our perspective because we're endemic to it. Like we're engaged in it. We already think we know the rules. Stop. And it's just not worth it. Open it to everybody. So I love it.
Yeah, it gets better for all of us. The one exception is if you're a cop and you're beating kids with your bicycle, then you don't belong in a cycling community. You can fuck off.
Correct. 100% agree. There's multiple like buttons that I can like. Old leftist Doug coming right at
No, he knows. He knows. Like, yeah, he knows the Doug hot button.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So awesome. First off, we are going to cut into some AMA. We got some questions. Probably take us about 15 minutes or so. James, you ready to hop on that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. All right. We got to pay some bills right now. So an awesome, huge thanks to all of you Pebbles for joining us, old, new, whether if you know James and you've decided to join us on the live stream, thank you very much. I hope you have awesome questions that we can ask him shortly that will make him cringe. But make sure that you like, subscribe, do all this sort of stuff, the magics of the interwebs to make sure that you're helping us make this show. Visit gravelot.com to make sure you can help support us, join our Patreon, call us on our phone number 513-400-5577, leave us hate mail, whatever. We're good for it. We just like having interaction, so bring it on.
Yeah, we're here for all of the experiences.
Exactly. And also we are gearing up for the second half of season 4. Who do you want to see on the screen? If you've got somebody you know, get them to us. We are looking for a diverse bunch of awesome folks who have awesome stories, just like James. Get them on the show. We'd love to dissect their stories and find out what makes them tick. So send us your suggestions. Send us your emails of people you know who you would love to see on TGL. We'd be happy to have them.
And in addition to you guys supporting us, whether it's on the live stream, the podcast, Patreon, any of our social media forums, you guys are really the lifeblood of this. But we also encourage you to go support our partners who are helping us bring this show to you guys each and every week. We're going to talk about them shortly. So hit their websites. The link is in the show notes. Be sure to go support them. Tell them that you are appreciative of all of their support of us, because without them, there's so many things of this show that have not been that would have not been possible had they not stepped up and helped make them happen.
Yeah, they are awesome partners, and we're thankful for every single one of them. They've been amazing since the dawn of time. And our first thanks goes out to our good friends at Be Free Ride Bike Cycling Apparel. Amazing apparel, top notch, whether it's custom or the stuff and they got some new designs coming out right now, some good hot stuff on their shop. Make sure if you're looking for team kit for this upcoming season, because people are actually going to be able to race bikes because we're somehow shockingly managing the global pandemic fairly well. Knock wood. Go get your team some new kit from BFRB, or go get yourself some new kit just to be out there and looking fresh and clean. Visit them at bfrbcycling.com and take a look how they can help you look your freshest in 2021 and beyond.
And hopefully you guys also know by now to go to grandpoorbrotherscoffee.com. Dan has been a monster supporter ever since he first came into, or I guess we came into his sphere of influence. And he bought into what we're doing and has been a massive supporter of TGL since day one. And if you're not familiar yet, I'm shocked that you're this far into the episode and you're not familiar with Grandpa Brothers Coffee, but it is small batch, hand-roasted coffee grounds that are delivered directly to your door. They are packed by Dan's lovely hands himself. He writes the notes on the USPS packaging for you. Love notes mostly. I don't think I've ever seen one that's like the hate mail. Maybe we will now. But so go to grandpoorbrothers.com now. Check out all of the blends. You can not only see where they originated and what some of the tasting notes are, but also Dan gives a portion of the proceeds from every single blend to a specific cause. So you can go through, you can see that, oh, this one's, cherry and honey and blah, 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 but it also donates to this specific cause. It is truly the definition of putting your money where your mouth is in terms of running a business correctly and doing things that you actually give a damn about. So for that reason alone, go support it. It is secondarily amazing coffee. I am back on the bandwagon, really excited to make coffee every morning. But if you want to get the subscription service, you will get a free bag of coffee. So then there's even the, we'll throw in the marketing reason for you as well. So threefold reason to go shop at grumperbrothers.com now from me this week.
I've been powered by them all day for sure. Also, a massive thanks to our good friend Mitch at BioWheels Fit Studio and Workshop right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, offering the best fit in the Midwest, intended to provide you with the most comfortable, efficient fit that you could possibly have on your bike. Go check out Mitch and BioWheels and all their inventory that's coming in live updated. If you're looking for a bike in the region and you're looking for something specific, Mitch can likely help you out. And when you purchase a bike, I believe you get a bike fit with that bike. So Mitch knows how to set you up just right. John and I are working on some stuff in the background, and I'm going to send Mitch my details so he can tell me what I need to do to make sure I got some stuff going on, make sure my fit remains the same, because I've been fit by Mitch and it's a fantastic thing. So nice to be comfortable on my bike. Kind of nervous to change spaces, but I know Mitch has got my back. So go visit Mitch at BioWheels. He's amazing, and we are very thankful for his support.
And we are also super thankful to the Ritual All Natural Skincare, which is handmade small batch chamois cream using all natural vegetable oils, vegetable butters that are all locally sourced here in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and made in small-ish batches, somewhere 20, 25 tubs at a time, right up the road from us here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So the coolest part about this is that you are able to not only design the tub, design the graphics for the lid, all of that stuff. You can make it look as pro as you want and make it match your team kit from BFRB, or you can match your hand-up gloves, whatever you want to do. But the even better part about it is you can decide if it's cooling or not cooling, and then you can decide what the actual smell is as well. So you can pick all the essential oils to make it smell exactly the way that you want it. So it's kind of like making your Chipotle bowl, whereas if you don't like it, it's kind of your own fault. So if you guys are interested in doing that and want to do this for your shop, for your team, for yourself, get in touch with us at any of the ways that you can get in touch with the Gravel Lot or Doug or myself, and we will put you in contact with the folks at The Ritual.
And last but finally, not least, our good friends at Hand Up Gloves, doing amazing things throughout the glove industry and the clothing and apparel industry, but also doing amazing things for communities with their Gloves for Good campaign. Check out the Gloves for Good that they are doing for a number of different proceeds. There's going to be a number rolling out over the summer where proceeds from those gloves are going towards supporting groups that are doing good work locally. And it is just wonderful to see a friend of ours and a brand that we really believe in doing something awesome and giving back in that way. Also, if you haven't checked out their Friday cocktails, you definitely should. You can see our friend Troy be awkward on camera. It's freaking fantastic.
That alone is worth it.
Yeah,
Just watching him be
every
awkward.
Friday, it's like my highlight. I'm off work. It's time to see what Troy's trying to drink tonight and how bad the commercial was. We'll do one. We've been working on one. We're going to get this done because now we can be around each other again. We'll do
yes.
We can make a hand up commercial for y'all. But we're so thankful for their support. Go to the link in the show notes, click on that link, and then enter code Pebble $sign to save yourself 10% on everything in the Hand Up store. Awesome stuff. Jorts, which I'm currently wearing, trying to improve my day. Jorts. They're stretchy, they're comfortable. You can wear them while you're riding. Hand Up gloves. Jorts.
I always wait for the last jorts, but then I always know that there's another one coming.
Yeah, there's always another jorts coming.
Right. Okay, so we've said it before. We're going to say it again. We love hearing from you guys. We love when you engage with the show, whether it's positive feedback, critical feedback, whatever it is. Send us your guests, send us your comments, send us your questions. Just get involved with this thing because it is yours and you help us define the direction of it. So subscribe to us on all the social feeds, hit thegravelot.com, stay in touch, stay up to date. Join the live shows every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, depending on whether or not we've got daylight savings going on, whatever, 6:30 p.m. Cincinnati time. And we are on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Streamlabs, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn.
If you can shake a stick at it, we're on it. Not well, but we're there.
I almost said MySpace, but who has a MySpace anymore?
Tom does. Tom's
Tom's still there. Yeah. Well, Tom got out. He sold, but Tom's on a beach now, so Tom's fine.
So our new intro and outro music is from Waterboy. Many thanks to him for all the awesome tunes. Check him out on all the major platforms or click the link in the show notes to get linked up with all of his music. James, we have some questions for you.
Great. Go ahead.
So the first one we have was Twitter submission earlier this week, and I actually really need to know the answer to this. So this is actually really good because this is right in your wheelhouse. What methods of organization during or before the Spanish Civil War best translate to modern Western society? So, like, give a little preface so people understand what was going on. Like, it's a nugget, just please, the nugget of the Spanish Civil War, and then how those things translate on towards now.
Yeah, of course. So, very basically, Spanish Civil War. Try not to let this scare you. We have a progressive left wing. Okay, so monarch, Spanish monarch off the scene, right? Spanish Republic starts. For 2 years, we have a progressive left wing government. They try and do good shit, try and reform land, they try and get religion out of Spanish government, try and make the world better for most people in Spain. That, of course, results in a swing to the right. And we have a regressive right-wing government that sort of substitutes religion for national identity in lots of ways. It's not fascist, but it's very right-wing and regressive. And then they lose the election, and we have another progressive left-wing government. This one's a popular front, so it combines like communists, even anarchist ministers, right? Socialists, left libs.
It's interesting. Seeing some parallels, James.
Yeah, then
subtle parallels. Yeah.
So what happens then is Civil War. Joe Biden is not a popular front, right? He's selling.
I know.
Bombs to Israel. I know, but like, I have to say it. Like, people get really convinced that like Uncle Joe's going to fix it, and selling them. Yeah. Sorry, I know. I wish.
He's busy driving electric trucks today, so he's not fixing much today.
Yeah, he's driving the electric trucks. Good stuff. Okay. So yeah, then a civil war kicks off, a military coup, really. So what I specifically write about is that Barcelona was organizing an anti-fascist Olympics in 1936, because you'll remember that the 1936 IOC Olympics were awarded to Hitler. He is a turd. Lots of people didn't want Hitler to have the Olympics. So Barcelona, that's my professional opinion.
Oh God, that was the worst time to take a drink. Like, that was the perfect description too. Just, he's a turd.
He's a turd, yeah. So Barcelona organizes an alternative. A bunch of people go to do sports. And then the Civil War starts the day the Olympiad is supposed to start. So the games never happen, right? But lots of them stay. And they stay because they came to do anti-fascism, and they stayed to do anti-fascism, right? And what Paul is asking, I think, is about, so in the first couple of days of the Spanish Civil War, what happens is you have a coup. In various cities it succeeds, in various cities it fails. In Barcelona it fails, and it fails because mostly the anarchist workers are better at fighting than the army are, right? So it becomes a fight, and it's a fight that the army doesn't win. And they wouldn't have won the Civil War if they weren't backed by actual fascists like Germany and Italy, and if countries like the United States, Britain, France had not abandoned them, right? Like, we abandoned the democratically elected government because that is what we always do, and continue to do, and have learned nothing from. So what Paul's asking is about these myriad militias who sort of joined together briefly and then fell apart. About a year later, the communists started killing everyone who wasn't a communist, like they always do. Right?
Shocker! Shocker! Totally out of character.
Yeah, unprecedented move. They didn't actually send in tanks this time, but like, this is why everyone calls them tankies. This is why tankies are bad. This is why you shouldn't. Like, if someone has a North Korea flag in their Twitter bio, just fucking move by. So what Paul is asking about is like anarchism, anarcho-syndicalism, all these different means of organization, which are complicated. I think what made them successful is that they didn't get super duper bogged down in the details in the early months of the Civil War. They pointed at what was bad and then they shot at it, and that's the way you do it actually. So like if you look at popular militias, right, the important things are that they didn't get. It happens a lot if you look at like the left in the US now. Good topic for cycling podcast. But like this, we can get really like split along these pole lines, right? Identity politics, and they didn't do that. Like you had black officers commanding white troops. You also had white officers commanding black troops. You had women fighting alongside men. You had queer folks, right? You had non-binary folks, people who like it would have been easy to get hung up on the differences. They didn't. They got together on the like we don't like fascists and want to kill them.
So like perfect not being the enemy of good.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing we can learn from them is not that like anarcho-syndicalism is the future, or like we need to have our Kropotkin Bakunin discussion right now. It's that we don't, and that like it can be hard, right? That we have to commit to accountability and discussion and justice, but like we have to keep pushing against the thing that is really bad, not the thing that is imperfect.
Okay, so this actually dovetails perfectly into a submission we just got from Dan, and it's two separate comments, but I'm going to read them all together because I think it kind of transitions nicely from where you were going. Can you talk about successful efforts or approaches that countries have taken for freedom and democracy after authoritarian fascist governments such as Brazil, Argentina, Chile post-military, Italy post-Berlusconi, España post-Franco, South Africa post-apartheid, and what should the U.S. be looking at doing right now?
Yeah, I think the big thing. So, like, if you look at Spain, right, like, it doesn't really matter if you call it fascism or not. It's shit. It was. I think Paul Preston said it best when he was like, Franco wasn't a fascist; he was something worse. So, like, because there's too much religion for him to be a fascist. But what they didn't do was have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. What they didn't do was say we were wrong. What they didn't do was hang Franco in a gas station and beat him with sticks like they did with Mussolini, right?
Yeah.
He died in his sleep, and Spain had a pacted transition where the people who did the crimes were never held accountable for their crimes. So I'd call Spain at the risk of triggering someone who I don't care about, a post-dictatorship rather than a democracy. Spain is still coming out of dictatorship, and it is not there yet. So like that's how you do it wrong. How do you do it right? Like I don't think anyone's done it perfectly, but like South Africa did have Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, right? And it did admit that it did stuff wrong, and like it put the person in charge who had made the biggest effort to change that, right? Like we were calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist not so long ago,
right?
And we admitted that we fucked that up, and well, we didn't really, but we were forced to, right? So in terms of what we can learn, it's hard, right? Because how does a settler colonial state admit to its errors without destroying itself?
Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask in terms of like, I think if you're looking at previous administration, you're not going to get any sort of, obviously you're not going to get any sort of truth, but I don't think you're going to get any sort of like public reconciliation. But is that stuff like, can we settle for Southern District of New York or high crimes, misdemeanors, things that are kind of tailing him all over the country, and use that as some sort of like come to Jesus with that whole 5 years of American history? Like, is that going to be enough?
Not to me. Like, and this is obviously I can't have all the answers here. Donald Trump's not an aberration. He's a product of a system.
Yes, 100%.
Like his accountability is not accountability. Like the way that the Republican right reacted to him losing was to try and make it harder and harder for people to vote in other elections, right? So like we still seemingly have a system where we think that the outcome of the game is more important than the rules of the game, right? So to change that, there's a lot that we need to change. And that I don't think you can do that with like Joe Biden doing a speech or even Congress passing an act or any of that shit. Like that requires a more fundamental change, and it requires like a fundamental restructuring of a system which continues to represent land more than it does people, right? Like that's why people in Montana are massively overrepresented in the electoral college compared to people in Georgia who may not even be able to vote at all, right? Like some of that shit is broken, and like some like you know, some of that maybe can't be fixed. Well, no, like, there's no maybe about it. You can't fix that within the boundaries of the Constitution written by some white men who owned slaves and thought they were better than women and anyone who wasn't the same color as him. Like that is not a system that is relevant to a polity that is really interested in democracy and equality. So yeah, like, is that going to change? Not immediately, but I saw people build autonomous ways of organizing this summer that I didn't think I would ever see in the United States. I saw people show up for each other in a way that I didn't think I'd ever see in the United States. I saw people continuing to build like mutual aid and solidarity networks outside of the state, which is how you do it, right? You build sustainable ways to defend, protect, and care for one another outside of the state. You organize like the state isn't there, and then fight it when it comes after you. So yeah, that's how you do it. I don't know how we like. I don't think that like the current United States moves past the Trump moment, because
no, of course not. Half the country believes that they are still in a certain space, and I think it is important for us to think about how we progress as a society, given that as the landscape, you know.
Yeah.
Bless whoever that was. I want to ask this as well. So we're talking about the parallels with Spain as you were outlining it, and yeah, there are, but I think what they had was probably us on volume 11. All of those parallels are, you know, heightened in those senses, but there's a lot of people that I know in my like direct circle that use the phrase American Second Civil War pretty frequently, as though they're expecting it to happen in their lifespan. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that I find that troubling, because I don't think...
I find that troubling.
Well, like, I find particularly, and it's on the left as well as right, like these Boogaloo kids are
We've
mostly...
lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, right here. You gotcha. Sorry.
Cool. Like there's this Boogaloo thing, right? But I also see it on the left with like, you know, these like left military groups. Like, no one wants a civil war, man. Like that shit doesn't end well for anybody. Like I cannot emphasize enough. But like, will it happen? It probably would have done if it was going to. We have a lot of people with guns, but a lot of them are also posers, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's kind of my take on it, but I almost wonder if it's not going to be the classic, the war that we kind of know war to be, in terms of like, you know, you're fighting specifically against your neighbor, or is like, are we going to redefine what civil war means in the country? To your point of like organizing outside of the state, and then when the state does something that you disagree with, Alabama, Mississippi, I'm looking at you. Actually, Alabama today, congratulations. Mississippi, I'm still looking at you. But like when they do things that are outside the scope of things that you're trying to protect and hold dear, then you push back against them in whatever way is fit. That doesn't necessarily mean taking up arms and shooting guns, but that's where my head goes in terms of what does. Like, if we're going to talk about civil war, I think it's some sort of civil uprising, but is that even big enough to actually change the system that we have right now, given the billions and billions of dollars that are kind of funneling into it and running the machinery?
Yeah, I think you're right on like looking at what war looks like differently, right? Like, we'll continue to see stochastic and isolated violence, and like we shouldn't ignore that like police forces across the US kill a lot more people than the militaries of most countries every year, right? Like that's what war is, right? It's people
Right.
coming into your house and shooting you, which can happen here.
It did, like
here.
just south of us, that they broke into her house and they shot her.
Yeah, and it keeps happening, and we've decided that we're not going to do anything about it, right? For the bulk of people, they came out and did some walking around, they shouted, everyone was really pissed last year, and then got tear gassed enough times that most people stopped. I don't know why people stopped coming. But there was a pandemic, people were afraid. I should acknowledge that. People were working hard to provide for their families too. But yeah, we will continue to see stochastic. Look, I wrote 2 stories last week about white nationalists who live in my county who were stockpiling pipe bombs, machine guns, and trying to start a race war. Like, I mean, the tools are going to keep doing that shit.
Right.
And like most of them seem to not have made it as far as acting. But yeah, of course, we're going to keep seeing that stuff, right? Like the people are going to continue to think that, like I said, that the result is more important than the rules in the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we sort that out. Like, and it does seem to only be the right. Like, there are more people on the left. There are more diverse and marginalized people with guns than there ever have been, probably, which is interesting. And I can't say I blame them, given that if all the people who want to kill you have guns, and you probably don't want to,
right?
Yeah, unless you're worried about ending your own life, of course. But yeah, it doesn't bode well for like a peaceful transition. But like I say, I think no one wants civil war, and I think enough people know that isn't a desirable outcome for us to end up in like full. Maybe we'll see more Malheur wildlife refuge shit. But like most of that was LARPing too. So yeah, I don't know. It depends. A lot of it depends on the state too. Like, how's the state going to react?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So one that we have here is you are doing journalism and advocacy. How do you see those two things be able to coexist yet still do fact-based journalism?
Yeah, I think a lot of people ask that, actually. And this comes back to like every single one of us is biased. The idea that you can be some kind of unbiased, like perfect rational actor is bullshit, right? It's a notion that capitalism is built on, and that is also wrong. But we probably don't have time for that, right? But
I remember that from my my philosophy of government classes.
I thought about it today deeply. I thought about it today a lot. I messaged John about it. I was like, this system.
It is a lie that we keep telling ourselves about ourselves. But like the same is true of journalism, right? Like everybody brings everything they are to everything they write. So of course, like my desire to like have more justice and equality, and my definitions of justice and equality are going to inform what I write about. But everything I write also goes through 3 or 4 other people who make me spend them dozens of links and spend hours looking at Facebook screenshots of swastikas to fact check the shit that I write. It's not blogging anymore, right? Like I don't just log on and type it in and press send and up it goes on the Appeal or Slate or something, right? Like everything I write is thoroughly fact checked.
Yeah.
And so like that, I think like it's fact-based journalism, of course. Like everything I write has a thesis or like something I want you to take home. But like the reason I want you to take, like, look, my opinions change all the time. I try to always be open to nuance. Like I think I would have been different in my opinions on a lot of things last year. I would have been different in my opinions on a lot of things relevant to policing like 4 or 5 months ago, even. But I've tried to change, and my opinions have changed because I've been there reporting the stuff. I'm not just like sitting at home checking the timeline. And so like, and migration too and stuff. Like, I do my best to go out there and get stuck in and listen to people and try and be open to what they're saying and tell their stories. Like I don't try and go in wanting to tell a story, but of course who I am informs the story I end up telling.
I think that's fascinating because part of what we have to do is take in information that is that is one-to-one, that is not just based on, hey, John told me that James feels this way. I got to talk to James and understand what James's perspective is, and that can alter my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Like try and convey people's feelings, or like, that's a privilege we have in the media, to give things a megaphone.
Yeah. Okay. So, last but certainly not least,
That's the most important question.
In the vein of bringing everything about yourself to a given situation, and putting yourself really, really into your work. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I'm so glad that we've made Neil wait for the entire podcast.
I feel like we had to do the work, and then just this is the palate cleanser.
I was waiting to see how you were. Very impressed. I've thought about this, been thinking about this for a while. I think that the duck-sized horses are a better option, and I will tell you why. The thing with a duck is that it's got two primary means of attack, right? It's got the beak, and then it's got the claws, but it's also got the wings. So like the horse-sized duck is problematic. Like, where's its weak point, right? You come at it from the front, beak. You can get behind it, it can still get you with the wings, right? You get underneath it, it can still stamp you. I feel like you compare that to the duck-sized horses, what they can do, they can bite you. It's not that bad, right? Like their teeth aren't that sharp. And then they've also got hooves, they can kick you. It's not that bad. I think you could engage with the duck-sized horses in a way that you could defeat them. Like, you just have to get away from them.
And so I've been thinking about this one too. And this one, we used to have it on the 3 questions in the gravel out. We used to ask questions like this, the hard-hitting questions. But the bones in horses are generally thinner and more like bird bones. So they are like, that's why you see if a horse breaks its leg, they generally have to put it down, and they are very prone to just breaking legs. So if you shrink that down, you're shrinking down the amount of power that kick can do to you. And it's, this big of a horse, but you're also taking that same structure and that same weak point and making it even smaller yet, and making it even more delicate. The idea to me of a horse-sized duck is frightening on so many levels, because they are dense. And if it is a size, if it's the size of a horse, that's so much duck. I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that duck.
No,
100 duck-sized horses running around would actually be kind of hysterical.
Yeah, I agree. I'd take the horses. Do you want to play devil's advocate, Doug?
No, I'm totally with this, because I'm thinking like I can use like a hockey stick to like smack
bringing weapons in.
Right, yeah, like weapons are way more effective. Like a household weapon is way more effective.
You can tell that Doug's in mole killing mode.
Right, yeah, like I can my shovel and I can whack these dudes in the head. I can get at least 10 or 11 of them and back up, right? Like that horse-sized duck. Imagine how big a horse-sized duck's neck is. It's massive. You can't hide. It'll break through your window. You're fucked.
Yeah, it's like a linebacker neck. Like it just goes from the ears down to the shoulders. Like it's not.
It's just bad. It's a very bad situation. I am not here for it. All right, we are full team.
Yes.
Duck-sized
agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still not a pleasant thing. I'm gonna have a haunted dream tonight. Certain I will not be sleeping well. Right. So, well, James, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us and be on the show and talk about all your history and all this stuff. We look forward to having you back and talking about whatever is going on in the world and all the things you're up to with all your projects and the stuff that's going on. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it. It's a good talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great to have you. Pebbles, that's it for this week. So be sure to subscribe, follow, and engage, because as you know, decisions and trails are made by those who show up. So if we don't see you on the trails this week, we'll see you next time. Bye, John.
Bye, Doug.